We are live here on a Tuesday get-together on Bird 365. It's good to have the Mac Man back.
Yeah.
John McMullen back after a victorious trip to Detroit, which he was just sharing with us the phenomenal time that he had in Motown this week. Got out and about, huh, John? Painted the city red.
Got to see the Uniroyal tire, the big Uniroyal tire on the interstate, which is exciting.
I've only been to Detroit like twice in my whole life. Where the hell's the Uniroyal tire?
It's a big tire. It's on one of the interstates out there, but we drove by it. It's actually pretty cool. I didn't go. I wasn't Clark Griswold. I didn't go over and stop and say, "Yeah, look, kids, the Uniroyal tire." But Detroit, actually, it's very nice near the stadium. It's really underrated. Comerica Park is right next door, right across the street. It's downtown, nice setting. Ford Field's nice, but yeah, I mean, you're going to Key West this weekend. I'd rather be you than me.
Yeah. I haven't had a weekend off, and I've had one weekend off in the last 6 years. So this will be number 2 in the past 6 years. So yes, I'm looking forward to it. I got a little family wedding that we have to attend. But I will be watching on Sunday when the Eagles take on the Chargers. But before we go there, we got to take a look back at this Sunday's game against the Lions.
We got to say Happy Trade Deadline Day first.
Oh, yeah,
that's what I want to get. It's Happy Trade Deadline Day.
We've got how many hours? 4 and 4 is 8. 8 hours until the trade deadline. Under 8 hours now. And yeah, I got a lot of questions I want to run by you there. But first things first, the beatdown of the Detroit Lions. I want to give the Eagles all the credit for everything they did yesterday here on the show. Myself, Jeff Kerr, gave Nick Sirianni a ton of, Jonathan Gannon a ton of credit, the players a ton of credit. How bad are the Lions?
Oh, man. Oh, I was wrong about them playing. No, I'm with you. Look, you can only play who's on the schedule. The Eagles deserve a ton of credit for taking care of business. That's how I described it. That was a business trip. And they did their job, and they got the heck out of there with the easiest win I've ever seen in my life. But I don't know how much you can take out of that game. I really don't. I think it's such an outlier. It's so meaningless from a standpoint that the competition was so pathetic. And maybe it was because of the injuries on top of what they had coming into the game. And we had discussed they've been competitive in certain games and played hard, and I read that part of it wrong. I mean, once they got behind, it was over. We've been talking all year. The Eagles want to play from the lead. Now, every NFL team wants to do that, but it's a little bit more important for the Eagles because they just don't have the ability to come back with the passing game down 2 scores. So everything lined up perfectly once the Eagles got the lead. They could just run the football in the second half. So 1980 Philadelphia was rejoicing. But it's not sustainable. People are saying they found the formula. They didn't find anything unless the formula is the Detroit Lions each and every week. I mean, that's not going to happen. And it starts this Sunday with the Chargers, as you mentioned. And by the way, the Chargers are terrible stopping the run.
Correct.
So we'll talk about this. Well, you're not going to be here, but we'll get into it later in the week. We'll talk about the Chargers. But it's different. Even though they're terrible at stopping the run, they're also capable of putting up points. So you just can't sit and hand the football off 46 times or Justin Herbert's going to beat you throwing the football. There was no formula found. People are mad at me for pointing this out. You should be mad at yourself. There was no formula found. This was an outlier. So, Jody, those two things aren't mutually exclusive to me. The Eagles deserve credit for taking care of business, and it doesn't mean Jack, you know what.
Right. I tried to tell you last week that the Lions were the worst team in the National Football League. And this is a league that has the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars in it. I still say the Detroit Lions are the worst team in the National Football League, and I thought very much the Eagles were going to go in there and take care of business, which is exactly what they did. Now, Sirianni does get bonus points because watching his first 7 games, I thought, well, he's going to do what he always does. He's going to run RPOs, and Jalen Hurts will be put in compromised situations, and they're going to have to make some big plays late in the game. No, the Lions are that bad. they're that terrible, and he recognized it, and we had a good thing going on the ground. They couldn't stop it. The offensive linemen were eating it up, coming off the field, saying, stick with this coach, stick with this coach. He did just that. So it shows me that Nick Sirianni does have the mindset of, we're going to do, and he verbalized it both after the game and yesterday as well, we're going to do what we need to do each and every single week. That you can try and put a label on us, or this is what the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is what the Philadelphia Eagles do. Not accepting that. We're going to do on a given week what we need to do to win a game. Now, it's easier said than done, because the Eagles roster has some talent, but it's not the deepest roster in the National Football League, that they can dictate terms on a week-in, week-out basis. But if the coach has that mindset that he is going to stay open-minded about what he needs to do, what plays he needs to call, what kind of system he needs to use on a given week to beat an opponent, that's a real good thing.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty consistent. I think Nick Sirianni took way too many hits for the Flower comments, and the players enjoyed them, if anything. And I think you kind of saw that during that game. And they, I always go back to the Super Bowl run, because I think, and our buddy Zach Berman even wrote the book, and he called it Underdogs. I think that was the dumbest narrative, not Zach. I think that was the dumbest narrative in history for this reason. Everybody knew the Eagles were the best team in the NFC that year. Carson Wentz got hurt. And that's what changed. That's what changed.
Carson getting hurt. Okay, I see what you're doing.
That's what changed. If the Eagles have Carson Wentz, they're significant favorites against Atlanta. They're significant favorites against Minnesota. And then maybe in the Super Bowl, because of the Patriots and their reputation, they wouldn't have been favorites. So the whole idea of underdogs was kind of a crocky, what. It was about one player. It was about Nick Foles and people not believing in Nick Foles. And Nick Foles deserves credit for doing what he did. We all know that. My only point being, Doug Peterson used it. It doesn't matter if it's true. If you use it to your advantage, and people bought in, not just fans, but also players, it's great. And that's the same thing with Nick Sirianni and the flower power thing. Everybody's making fun of it. You used it, and if it works, hey, use it. Great. But the players had no problem with the speech. It was sort of the outside noise. Now, obviously, it's a much lesser stage. It's not as important of what Doug was able to do with the underdog team, but I just used that as an example. Sure. It doesn't have to be true. You can use it. Any kind of bulletin board material, if you can use it, use it. And if it works, great.
And when you get one of your team leaders to pick up the baton and run with you like Jason Kelce did, that's only going to help sell your flower narrative, as perplexing as it may have been. If it's working for them, you got to just take it. You say, thank you very much. We'll continue in this vein. Good for Nick Sirianni. Yesterday, I caught the press availability that you were part of, and he was asked about guys that he played. I mentioned this with Jeff Curry yesterday. One of the benefits, side benefits, and maybe underrated benefits of a 44-6 win is you get to empty the bench. Everybody gets a chance to play. Guys who don't usually get snaps, who are relegated to special team stuff, like Marlon, or doesn't get on the field. He doesn't play specials, and he just doesn't get any snaps from defense. He got a chance to play. I think it's a good rallying call for the team, and it kind of uplift the spirits of the entire roster. Part of that was, tiempo de garbage time. But in a couple spots, it was trying to get young guys some more reps. Davion Taylor ended up playing the most defensive snaps at linebacker. Milton Williams ended up playing the most defensive snaps on the defensive line, and Sirianni was asked about it, and he didn't just poo-poo it. He didn't give it a ton of, that's exactly what we're doing, trying to play our younger guys so we can evaluate them. He didn't come out and say that, but he also didn't dismiss it either, which tells me the Eagles did it with a purpose this past week. There were a couple of young guys they wanted to get more action and more of a look at, and I say good for the Eagles on that front.
Yeah, definitely linebacker. I mean, that's where they made the shift from a personnel perspective, and TJ Edwards was sort of the guy, the number one role. They've been rotating, and then it was Davion Taylor, and they've been trending in that direction. They've been rotating the linebackers, which I asked Nick Sirianni about yesterday. It's not a normal thing to do in the NFL. It's not a rotational position. Certain positions are rotational, certain aren't. Typically, linebackers aren't. You have one or two that play the vast majority of the snaps. And I think the Eagles want to get there, but they aren't there and they don't have the talent to be there. So obviously, early in the season was Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton. Now he's rotating. Eric Wilson was a healthy scratch. So that was the biggest news. So TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor had been sort of starting in the run support looks, and then they would bring in Singleton and Wilson for the pass coverage looks. Yesterday, it just got ramped up to Edwards being more of the sort of three down option. And see, that to me is interesting. Can you continue to do that against a team like the Chargers? Because they're going to throw the football. And they throw the football to the backs as well. And they have a long history, really dating back to when Nick Sirianni was there, of being very successful at that. And even prior, when Darren Sproles was there, they're very successful. If they see TJ Edwards on the field, if they see Davion Taylor on the field, they're going to try to take advantage of it. So that to me is something you look at. Was that tweak made for the Detroit Lions because they can't take advantage of it? Or was that tweak made because this is our best option? So that's one of the interesting things that I think we're going to have to see how it unfolds moving forward. The other guys, and Milton Williams, we had talked to him. He had not played well as a rookie, and he got a game ball. So he played very well. But everybody else, if you look at it, Milton and Teron Jackson, and you saw Andre Sachere. I always screw up his name first out there. Sean Bradley, Tay Gowan made his Eagles debut. Josiah Scott. You mentioned Marlon Tuipulotu was out there for that was because it was a blowout. And the same thing on the offensive side. There was a little bit of a tweak because of who they were playing, and there was way more 12 personnel. The Eagles have gone to pretty much exclusively 11. Certainly after the Zach Ertz trade. Yesterday, you saw Dallas Goedert. You saw a lot of Jack Stoll, even Richard Rodgers, because they were running the football so effectively. I don't think that continues as an example. Plus, you got, Brett Toth was in the game, Andre Dillard, Gardner Minshew, obviously would start with him at quarterback. So all of that was more of the garbage time aspect.
Let me get a couple quick questions on the guys who did get a chance to play. And I'd say the Chargers have a history going even further back than Darryl. Still, I'll go all the way back to LaDainian Tomlinson. The Chargers have always been a team that throws the ball to the guy out of the backfield. LaDainian's one of the best in the history of the National Football League to be able to do it, make plays out of the backfield. I don't think they have that type of a running back right now. Eckler's good. He's no LT. But
you are
back to the Eagles. One guy was a little disappointed with the fact that he didn't get more reps was Kayvon Wallace. He was in that same mix with Josiah Scott and Tay and getting their Eagle feet wet and stuff like that. The very, very much all backup defensive backfield. I thought he was going to be more like Davion Taylor and Milt Williams and get some snaps when the game was still sitting, at least in somewhat undecided form. Come on, you knew as soon as the Eagles got up by 2 touchdowns, the Lions weren't rallying to win the game, but you get my point. Do you think this is a week for them to try and get a little bit more out of Wallace? Are we going to get the chance to see him more? Because there is a guy that you still need to get a read on for future purposes. Is he a guy that the Eagles can lean on more heavily next year?
Yeah, I don't know, because the Eagles really like Marcus Epps, and Marcus is a guy that is essentially played, and part of it is injury related in that Kayvon has got banged up on a couple of occasions. Those guys were kind of even in training camp, more or less. And you had one who was the single high safety type more, and that's Marcus, and one who was more the box type in Kayvon. But I think as Kayvon has been out of the lineup and Marcus has continued to play, I think the Eagles have, liked the way he's handled the job and think he's sort of won that third safety job. And really, he might be pushing Anthony Harris at this point to be the second safety, opposite Rodney McLeod when Anthony is healthy or Anthony gets traded or what have you. They really like Marcus Epps. So I think if it comes down to Marcus Epps or Kayvon Wallace, Marcus is going to play at this point. And he's a young player as well. So I think people kind of forget that because he was acquired in a different fashion. He was drafted by Minnesota, picked up on waivers. So, they look at Kayvon Wallace, who's a draft pick here, and say, well, we got to get him on the field. The Eagles have kind of, Marcus is playing better. Marcus is going to play.
Fair enough. And Epps did play well on Sunday against the Lions. I thought he and TJ Edwards both had phenomenal games in the back seven for the Eagles. By the way, do you call him Marcus or do you call him Epsy?
I call him Epsy. I love that. I love the Epsy nickname. That was a Swartz. That was a Swartz thing, man. Everybody had the hockey nickname with
Swartz called him Epsy.
I call Swartz the Swartzy. Because he gives everybody the hockey nickname, and Epsy is Epsy.
There you go. He is John McMullen. Good to have him back with me, Jody Mack. We're your Birds 365 guys. We have only started to talk about the trade deadline. Now we use a couple of mentions in there. I think Johnny Mack threw one name in there that kind of spot. Oh, Anthony, could I trade Harris off the injured list on this trade deadline day? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's acquiring. But I got a couple angles that I do want to ask both John Mack and our first guest and our second guest. We have two good guests coming your way today. First would be Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philly and the Eagle Eye podcast with our buddy Ruben Frank. A little later on, we'll talk to our pal Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, who does cover the entire league these days. He always seems to get involved with the Eagles stuff on a week-in, week-out basis. He just can't let it go. Even though he covers the entire league, he's got to get his Eagles question in on the Eagles media availabilities. So we'll talk about both the entire league and the Eagles on trade deadline. We're
talking playoffs, I think, from Rob. Didn't he ask a playoff question? I gotta reload.
Was that his question yesterday? Did he really go down the playoff route?
I think it was. I'll double check.
Jeff Kerr was Johnny on the spot yesterday. One game out of a playoff spot, and the team that holds that last playoff spot right now would be the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. Well, the Eagles have a victory over, a tiebreaker over. So, we'll continue to let playoff images dance in our heads. After a 44-6 win, we'll see if that's actually realistic.
You got to put Jim Moore out there. Playoffs.
I say no thank you. I think the Eagles still need to sell today, but that's just me. We'll see what Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philly has to say. He joins us next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope. John Doherty, business manager of Local 98, says it this way: the best way not to forget where you come from is to never leave.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Tuesday get together here on Birds 365 with the Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald. Lucky enough to have one of the best Eagle Beat guys in town join us. He does it for NBC Sports Philly, and his Eagle Eye podcast with Ruben Frank is a must listen to for Birds fans. Dave Zangaro joins us here on Mac on Birds 365. DZ, did you enjoy Detroit as much as my partner here, John McMullen? He was singing the praises of Motown, was bummed that he had to leave.
I wouldn't go that far, Dave.
It was all right. I enjoyed an easy travel weekend
Yes.
after Vegas. It's easy to get into Detroit, short flight.
Yes.
Stayed downtown. It was nice and simple. All I needed from this week.
That's the positives. And getting out. Dave and I were on the same flight out, which if you were, that wasn't a given considering what's going on around the country with American Airlines. So that was the most positive part. That probably. So
yeah, that worked out.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that trip about the Philadelphia Eagles? Because I gave them credit, Dave, for it was a business trip, kind of like what you said, in and out, take care of business. From that perspective, I give them all the credit in the world. But for the people who think they found the formula, I don't know if you can take too much out of this game, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what we learned is that the Lions are really bad. Look, they did in this game what fans have been wanting them to do on both sides of the football. They ran it on offense, on defense. They challenged a little bit. The problem is, I mean, they'd be crazy to not do that against Detroit, because especially challenging on defense. I mean, it was, if they didn't do it in this game, I'd seriously start to question Jonathan Gannon, because that offense doesn't have any big plays in it. So what are you taking away if you play your traditional cover 2 against them? But I think that maybe it teaches them some lessons that they can do these things, regardless of opponent. Maybe it teaches Nick Sirianni that, our offensive line really likes to run the ball. They can move forward at times. And maybe it shows Gannon on defense that, hey, yeah, maybe I do have the guys to not be in cover 2 95% of the time. Maybe, play some man outside where I have pretty good corners, and maybe take some stress off the linebackers. I don't think the formula in this game is going to be the formula, but I think there are some lessons in there for the Eagles' top 2 coaches that some of these things they did in this game, they can transfer to other games. I don't think it's ever going to be like it was in Detroit, but I think maybe they can learn a little bit from it.
Dave, there is the mindset of each and every single team, and there's 2 of them. One is the collective that you believe can move and change and be different on any given week. And then there's each individual. They have their own mindset on where they sit, what they're accomplishing, what their team's doing, what their position is in the team. And both are important. And the coach is kind of the overseer of all of them. How much does a blowout win over an inferior opponent upgrade the mindset of the team in your mind?
Yeah, it helps. You know, they needed a win. They needed to feel good about themselves. And Jalen Hurts says it a lot, and it's kind of been a mantra that they can't be results focused, right? Like they have to worry about their process and have faith that their process is working. But I think it's human nature that after a while, when you're trying to trust in this process and it's not yielding the results you want, you start to question the process. I think that's just human nature. So to finally see them pull out a win, and yeah, the blowout fashion of it probably helps. But just to win, I mean, just to win a football game after where this team had been is really positive. And I think it look, it's obvious it's going to help them. And I think, you know, we all saw the schedule when it came out. They kind of went through a wood chipper there for a bit. It was some really tough games. But, you know, coming out of it, they played so poorly that you're like, I don't know what a winnable game looks like for this team. Because, sure, like, their games on the schedule look winnable. But if they played the way they had played the previous few weeks, nothing's a given. So I think it gives them the confidence to say, look, sure, Detroit stinks, but we beat them, and we beat them pretty soundly. There are games coming on this schedule, even this week. I mean, the Chargers have really come back to earth. After that, you know, Denver, you know, there are winnable games, and then those are winnable. And then you have the Giants, then you have Washington, you have the Jets in there. So, yeah, I think this team should be kind of optimistic right now, and I think they need to be after that win.
We're going to hold the playoff talk. Well, I don't want to go Jim.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that either. But for them, I mean, they're probably thinking, at least the veterans are. The young players are probably swimming right now. But the veterans, especially the guys who've been on this team and have started, you know, with awful records and either made the playoffs or kept it close, they know what's up. I mean, they know that they're looking at the schedule. They're still going to say they're not, but they know what's happening.
Yeah, and, you know, you're right. Human nature, if things continue to go down a negative path, that's when things happen like what happened to Detroit. I mean, they had been competitive in a number of games, and all of a sudden the wheels come off. But I want to shift you toward the most interesting personnel tweak, I think, in the game, Dave, and that was linebacker and Eric Wilson being a healthy scratch. It had been going that way for a number of weeks, and Jonathan Gannon kind of rolled out TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor as the run support linebackers, and then Wilson and Eric Singleton would come in more of the third down passing type linebackers. It's kind of weird to have rotations at linebacker, but that's where I talked. TJ Edwards played great, I thought, but it is the Lions. Is that sustainable? Is that a guy who can go out against Justin Herbert? And Jody and I were talking before you came on. There's probably not a team in this league known more going back years and decades for throwing the football to their running backs. Is that sustainable moving forward even a week?
Probably not, but it might be their best option. You know, the thing about TJ Edwards is, yes, he's limited athletically, but he's sound. You know, he's a linebacker, a smart player. Mm-hmm. He's in the right position. And it's funny because you have him and Davion Taylor, who are kind of like complete opposites in that way, right? Like Davion, 4.4 speed, but if you're in the wrong spot and you recover, like, what does it matter? I like TJ Edwards. I think he's a limited player. I think he has a ceiling, but you can see why defensive coaches like him, especially when they're looking around their linebacker room and there's not much there. I mean, the Eric Wilson thing, they didn't pay him a lot, but that's a disappointing signing. I didn't think he'd be a great player. I thought he'd be serviceable, and he earned his benching. I mean, he did. He had played poorly. He had lost snaps. I think Alex Singleton has really been hurt by the defense's style so far through this year. He's the kind of player who really needs to just play with his hair on fire and get after it. And they're putting a lot of stress on him, and we've seen him get exposed a little bit because of it. I still think he's an adequate player, and I think they're going to play him at times. And look, and the thing with Davion is early in the season, I was calling for him to play because I'm figuring if I have to watch Eric Wilson stink or Davion Taylor stink, I'd rather watch Davion Taylor stink. Get him the snaps, because at least there's a reason to think that he could become a good player, and they're playing him more. I'm glad they're playing him more. He doesn't look great out there, but there's still athleticism in his body that makes you think he could become a player at some point. So yeah, I want to see him a ton over the last 8 games.
So here's the question for me going into this week, and Dave, I want your answer, and John, if you want to chime in too. The decision for me comes down. Am I a little worrisome about the guys being able to catch the ball out of the backfield for LA? Yes. But one of the big things they got with Edwards, and you can tell me if it's coincidence or it was a strategy that worked, he helped the pass rush. He actually came on a couple of blitzes. I know he didn't get home, but then they shifted to him, and other guys got and I got 6 sacks. I'm trying to estimate, can he do that again this week against a guy like Justin Herbert? What does the Los Angeles offensive line look like in comparison to Detroit's? Will Edwards add to the pass rush? If the answer is yes, then I'm keeping him in, and I'll live with how he covers out of the backfield. If the answer is not sure because LA's line is that much better, well, then I might stay open to reverting back to the linebackers that I used in previous weeks.
Yeah, look, he can help you in the pass rush. Alex Singleton can blitz too, by the way. I mean, they can use him in that situation. They're not playing Detroit again, and we've seen Gannon really hesitate to blitz for a reason this year. I think he can sprinkle them in here and there. I think they have the ability to blitz. I don't know if you want to leave yourself too exposed by blitzing a ton. But yeah, Edwards can help you in that regard. He's a tough, hard-nosed player. I wouldn't expect Gannon to suddenly become blitz happy, though. I think timing them up here and there makes sense. Sending some extra pressure. And I think they can. Avonte Maddox is a pretty good blitzer from the nickel spot too. So they have some options there. He doesn't. The Jim Schwartz thing, whenever he would blitz, it was a zone blitz, which isn't really a blitz. It's like you're sending
just replacing one.
Yeah, you're just replacing a guy who can cover with a guy who can't cover. It's just pressure from a different area. So I think they have that in their back pocket. I don't expect Gannon to start blitzing a ton.
Offensively, the most interesting thing to me, Dave, was I think, and I'm paraphrasing, what Nick said after the game was, we're going to do what we need to do to win a game, something to that, which makes sense to me perfectly. But in a lot of ways, when we came into this season, the whole goal was, all right, let's figure out what we have at quarterback. Let's figure out what we need to do at quarterback. I didn't learn anything about Jalen Hurts in that game. Were the Eagles protecting Jalen Hurts, or were they just trying to get to the finish line with a win? And what does that accomplish for this long-term goal? Or have the Eagles already made their decision when it comes to Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think they did what they needed to do in that game to win it. And look, I don't know if Nick Sirianni is as concerned with figuring out what Jalen Hurts is as the front office. I don't know if that's his job. He's trying to win football. He's trying to save his own job. Yeah. He's trying to win games, and that was the formula in that game. I agree with you. I didn't learn much about Jalen in that game. And the troubling thing with Hurts through 8 games is that a lot of the fears I think we had about him haven't subsided. He's leaving plays on the field. He does leave the pocket too early, which I can forgive here and there. That's going to happen with a running quarter or dual threat quarterback. There's going to be times where, he probably made the wrong decision and he left the pocket, but that's become a little too consistent for my liking. He's leaving throws out there too. Some easy throws that I think you need to make, especially in this offense. Like, this offense is designed theoretically to hit shorter throws and let guys create with their legs. But if the accuracy is off on those short throws, and we've seen that a few times, I can especially think of a few times to Devontae Smith in the last few weeks. The one in this game was fine. Devontae just dropped it. But there have been other times where it's a slant, and Jalen's just got to hit him in stride. And if he does, it's a catch and probably yards after, and he hasn't hit him. You're right. I haven't learned much about Jalen that I didn't know. I like everything that he brings from the intangible side. I like his ability with his legs, and I think at times he'll make great throws. We've seen glimpses of great throws, but the inconsistency is still troubling there.
Here's where I do think Jalen gets a short end of the stick, and it's just kind of like people look right past this. Who led the Eagles in rushing this past weekend when they got a ton of credit for running the football? Eagles rededicated to the run game. Ground and pound Philadelphia Eagles. Who led them in rushing? Jalen Hurts. So the 71 yards that he racked up was more than Boston Scott. Hey, he looked good. More than back from the dead Jordan Howard. He looked great. Who led the team in rushing? Jalen Hurts. It's just like a given. He's supposed to do that because he's Jalen Hurts. There aren't, this side of Lamar Jackson, there aren't guys in the NFL that can do what he does when he takes off and makes plays with his legs.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that he some of those rushes were really big. He picked up some third down conversions, and some of them were impressive, but without being able to throw the ball, he needs to find a better balance in his game. Lamar's done that. Lamar wouldn't have been the MVP if he couldn't throw the ball. He's a great runner, and I'm not saying that Jalen can't become better. But we need to see it, and he has the rest of the season to prove it. Maybe more. Maybe they don't. Maybe they give him another year after this. But I think they'd really like to know what they have in him. And right now, what they have is a player who still has potential. He's still a developmental quarterback who has the legs, and in a way, it is a given. Like, we know he can do that.
Yeah.
I think they want to see consistency with him throwing the football, and they haven't. And some of that you can argue is on the coaching staff. Some of it you can argue is on the receivers. They don't have any veterans in that room, and they've made some young rookie mistakes on that level. And I don't think the head coach and play caller has done him any favors at times this year with the play selection, with the lack of balance, run pass in the offense. But Jalen just needs to be better in the situations he has been presented. And until he does that, I don't think the team can really feel comfortable about like declaring that he's their guy going forward.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Dave's perspective there. The fact that I know he can run the football. I give him all the credit in the world for those conversions and what he brings to the offense. It's the other stuff that we need to see to have that better balance and to be that next level of an offensive team. Now, today is a big day in the NFL. As you know, we're all New Jersey residents, so it's election day, but far bigger than any election, it's trade deadline day, Dave Zangaro. So the Eagles have already made some deals, obviously, Zach Ertz being the most notable, but Joe Flacco also going back up the turnpike. So they've already made some tweaks. They're not going to let this game in Detroit affect their long-term thinking when it comes to the trade deadline, are they? Please tell me that, Dave.
Oh, we're all in, John. No, yeah, I can't imagine they will. If they look, I don't think they're not gonna trade for a Von Miller type player like LA did. They're all in. I mean, that's really all in. If the Eagles see a player that has a young player maybe who has like a couple years left that's in a bad situation, and it was maybe something like that, adding a player. If they were to add someone, probably not likely, but not out of the realm of possibility. As far as being sellers, I don't think there's anyone who they'd sell to sell. But if they got offers, I mean, there's no one on this team that you'd say is untouchable. They should listen to offers if they come in. I think the most likely to get traded would probably be Andre Dillard, but I wouldn't give him away either. He's got another year of team control. He's proven he can at least be an adequate backup. So, if I get offered a 5th round pick, I'm not giving up Andre Dillard for a 5th round pick, but someone brings you a 3, then we can talk. I mean, then that's then I think you would pull the trigger on that. And to me, he's the most likely candidate. And Just because you have Jordan Mailata, who you've said is your left tackle, you paid him. Lane Johnson is here. Financially, you're tied to him. As long as he's okay and he's going to be able to play, you're going to keep him. So there's not a starting spot for Andre Dillard. If there's a team around the league that wants to tackle, yeah, he's for sale.
All right, let me run a hypothetical by you. 7th round pick conditionally needs to play X amount of plays. Otherwise, the pick just disappears. Would you give Derek Barnett away?
No, not for a 7th. I mean, a 7th round pick, how we can find a 7th round pick on a tree? And we're talking like a conditional, so I might not get anything for him. Yeah, to get rid of his salary, like we're already halfway through the year. They've already paid him. He plays a lot. They don't really have options at defensive end. It's not like they're real deep. I mean, I give away Ryan Kerrigan for a 7. You're giving me that same deal for Ryan Kerrigan, sure. Look, Derek Barnett hasn't played well, but he's at least an adequate player. Like he's giving you some decent snaps here and there. He just came off his best game of the year. I wouldn't give him away. I wouldn't. I think that.
Jody is closed the book. Jody, that's why he can't be a GM. And Jody's dad, obviously,
you got to field a roster the rest of this year. You're talking about the teams. The team's 3-5.
Yeah, no, I can. I would take my chances with Ryan Kerrigan tomorrow.
Would you cut him
both
then?
of those two guys. Who would I like to see get more snaps the rest of the year? Ryan Kerrigan.
That's crazy. That's insane. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Your team's 3-5. You're trying to at least have show the team that you want them to compete and
you got to think about the locker room as well, Joe.
Yeah, and Barnett is a pretty well liked guy in the locker room. He's he plays hard. He's not great, but he plays hard, and his teammates all seem to like him. I wouldn't give him away. If you're going to do that, then just cut him. And I don't think they're going to cut him.
So how about some of these other defensive guys, Dave? We mentioned one, Ryan Kerrigan, hasn't worked out. Veteran guy, Eric Wilson. He's just a healthy scratch. Probably can't get anything for him. Yeah. Anthony Harris. We don't know how close he is, but he's been injured. All of a sudden, Marcus Epps starts to play, and he's playing pretty much the same. I mean, you're not seeing any difference. Those guys aren't going to be here long term. And the one guy who's playing well that could really help people is Steve Nelson, who's probably not going to be here. Very cost effective. Ton of teams need cornerback help. Ton of contenders. Do you go full blown sell mode? Can you? This is the NFL. We know there's not going to be 57 trades, but can they go that direction and try? These guys aren't going to be here. Let's get something for them.
Yeah, Howie can ask other teams to correct his offseason. Basically, everyone I signed, they're for sale.
Yeah.
I mean, Kerrigan and Wilson, no brainers. I mean, if someone wants to give you something for them, they're not really playing anyway. So yeah, you take that. I don't know what they're worth to anyone. Maybe Kerrigan, you can try to sell teams on the idea that he's this
desperation. Daniil Hunter got hurt on Sunday night.
Maybe. And how he could be like, he had 5.5 sacks last season. He doesn't fit this defense. He's kind of being held back by this defense. He's out of position. Maybe it seems unlikely to me. Anthony Harris is the interesting one. Because you're right. I don't think there has been a drop off really with Marcus Epps, and they still have Kayvon Wallace, who is a younger player you'd like to see. So maybe that's possible. Who was the last one you mentioned? Oh, Steve Nelson. Nelson. He's the one that could actually get something for. Yeah. The problem is who he playing a corner then. It's kind of that balance right now of looking at the future, but also hey, we have to field a team, and he's played well. And who you playing at corner then? Do you just stick? I really don't know.
They got a bunch. We haven't seen them. We got Zach McPherson,
got a bunch of reps in this week at garbage time.
Yeah.
Mac McCain, who I still don't know what he looks like, Dave.
They have a bunch of young guys, but I don't even. I mean, I guess it would be either McPherson or Tay Gowan.
Yeah.
We just talked about the locker room, right? Yeah. You're trying to compete. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Maybe you mentioned the Detroit game changing how they viewed the trade deadline, kind of as a joke. Like, are they buyers now? But the other side of it is, are they a little more hesitant to sell a player like Steve Nelson now that they have a chance to compete for something this year? I think that's probably the more realistic effect of that win. They're not going to start buying at the deadline, but are they a little more hesitant to trade someone like Steve Nelson when they feel like, hey, we have something to play for here, and the drop off is maybe pretty significant? Whereas like with Anthony Harris, the drop off doesn't seem very significant to Marcus Epps. I think the drop off from Steve Nelson to whoever else would play at that spot would probably be pretty noticeable,
pretty significant. Not when I agree with you. I did Howie get caught asleep at the wheel yesterday? We get news that Derrick Henry probably done for the year, certainly regular season, maybe back for the playoffs. Tennessee at 6-2, best record in the AFC. They're not about to pack it in and become sellers. The guys that they've got coming off their bench at the running back position, I needed to look up because I didn't even know who they were. And when I looked them up, I still need to look up more information because I still didn't know who they were. Should Howie have been on the phone yesterday offering either Boston Scott or Jordan Howard coming off the games they had to the Tennessee Titans?
Well, you could offer him Boston Scott. Jordan Howard's not even on the roster, so Tennessee could just sign him if they want. That's something they have to work through because.
Now hold on, let me ask you a procedural question. He was on the roster this week. They called him up from the practice squad. Mm-hmm. Did they not get the chance to protect him again this week?
You can't do it till this afternoon, Tuesday afternoon.
So they can protect him today.
Yeah.
But yeah, the elevation basically gives him safe passage to and from the practice squad. And they can protect players. I'd assume they're going to protect him as soon as they get the chance today. But another procedural thing, Miles Sanders is out at least 3 weeks. You can only elevate a player twice. Now, the Eagles have gotten around that before with COVID elevations. If someone lands on the COVID list, then you can elevate someone. That elevation doesn't count toward the 2. So that's always in the back of your mind. They did that with T.Y. McGill like 6 times. They elevated him last year. But maybe they're going to need to add Jordan Howard to the active roster at some point. They're going to have to figure some stuff out because the other side of that is Tyree Jackson getting help. We're getting really into the weeds here. Tyree Jackson. I apologize for this. Tyree Jackson's getting close to getting off IR too. So you're going to have to find a spot for him. You might have to find a spot for Jordan Howard. So you got to figure out ways to do all that.
Now, one interesting last one for me, Dave, is Miles Sanders, because he's kind of an under the radar guy. When you think about, he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. The Eagles aren't going to pay running backs. It's kind of this weird, he's a good player. He's not a great player. I think he's overrated by the fan base. Is that maybe the under the weeds guy? You can trade guys on IR now. So he's on IR. They made that shift. It's a short-term injury from what everyone says. Could that be the one curveball we see at the trade deadline? Say the Eagles. We saw Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. We can get through this. It's not like cornerback where we don't have anybody.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay him anyway. Let's get it done. And you can get value. I would think,
maybe. I think it's probably unlikely. But you're right. It's a short-term injury, so he's out another couple games minimum, maybe misses 3 games. So if a team's a contender, they'd get him back for 5 games and then another year.
Yeah.
Sort
of gauge value. That's what the Eagles did. They
exactly.
had the extra year.
Yeah. And I think that would entice some teams because it's another cheap year, relatively cheap year. And if they think he could be a high quality running back for cheap in his final year, maybe. I think it's probably unlikely, but yeah, I don't think it's completely out of the realm possibility either. But I also don't think what we saw from Boston Scott and Jordan Howard is going to just transfer to every week. I think that would be foolish for the Eagles to look at it that way. I still think Miles is their best running back. I agree with you too. He's not like an elite player in the NFL, but he's still their best running back. I don't know what it would take. And I don't know what teams would offer for him. That's tough to figure out the compensation there, and on both levels, what teams would offer for him, what the Eagles would accept. And for that, I think it's probably not very likely.
Dave, last one from me. It's again a bit of a look into the crystal ball prediction type question. If I set the bar at 75% completion rate for Justin Herbert this week, the Eagles have been known to give up 80. So I'm not even setting the bar that high.
Yeah.
I'm coming in at 75 for Justin Herbert. If that's the case, how many yards does that equate to with the Charger offense being what it is?
I thought you were going over under. I was starting to figure that out. How many yards? Look, man, I don't know.
First number's 3, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, probably. He's good, but they've come back to earth a little bit. And I think there is a little bit of a template out there on how to slow them down and kind of use it. We'll see. But I think there is a little bit of a template out there how to get to him and get them off a little bit. I have to watch a little bit more of them, honestly. I've seen them in passing, but the last 2 weeks they look, they were. I mean, this game looked really tough a few weeks ago, really tough, and it doesn't look quite as tough right now, especially at home. So. I don't know. I'm not going to give you. I really don't know. But I think this game and Justin Herbert, he's kind of not. I don't want to say run into a wall, but he doesn't look as good right now as he did a few weeks ago, and the team doesn't look as good as they do now as they did a few weeks ago. So I think this is all of a sudden pretty winnable.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm with you, Dave. I thought Jody was going over under on completion percentage, and I'm going under for that because Justin Herbert likes to push the football down the field, so he'll try to go down the field, and I think he's not going to go check down, where you get to that 85-90%. He's going to try to push the football, but that's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, he's at 63.7 for the season, so that's pretty significantly below 75%. But I still think he's getting 300 yards. But that's for later in the week. David Zangaro, we appreciate you joining us early in the week. Feel free to just go down to the Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to go to Detroit. You don't have to go to Vegas. All you got to do is drive down to the game. Have a good drive. Nice. Have a great time watching the game. We'll get you back on here soon enough on Birds 365. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philly. His podcast, Eagle Eye podcast with Ruben Frank, is something Eagle fans should be checking out. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. We got a couple of more trade possibilities to run by you. I'll run them by Johnny Mac. They both beat up on me. They want to keep Derek Barnett. Why? I don't know. He had
nothing else.
Yeah, let's just put that one sack that he got, the first one in 2 years, on a loop and just keep playing it over and over and over again. The only tackle he made last week again. Just keep playing that over and over again. Time to move on. We'll move on. Quickie timeout. Come back here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope. John Doherty, business manager of Local 98, says it this way: the best way not to forget where you come from is to never leave.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thank Dave Zangaro for hopping aboard. Always good insight when Dave gets with us. We hope to get the same out of Rob Maaddi, who will be on with us in hour number 2. It is trade deadline day. We're under 7. Oh, we still got an hour to go. We got 4 minutes to go before the hour. 7 hours and change before the trade deadline hammer comes down, and teams are locked into the players they have. How active will it be across the league? Most importantly, how active, if at all, will it be here in Philadelphia? As a matter of fact, J-Mac, if I were to predict anything, I would say the Eagles do nothing. I don't think there'll be a buyer. I don't think there'll be a seller.
It's always the best. It's always the best bet, Jody. Always the best bet. Remember, they already made 2 trades, so people get things done earlier these days. They already made 2 trades with Zach Ertz and Joe Flacco. So,
but I'll give Jason LaConfort credit. Sorry if I interrupted you. He was the guy who I saw on Saturday mention that Vaughn Miller was available, and it came as a surprise to me. I was doing a show Saturday night on CBS Sports Radio, and I had another CBS football guy on, and I said, your cohort, Jason LaConfort, says that we could see Vaughn Miller traded. And he said, yeah, that came out of left field to me. I didn't know that the Broncos would actually go there, and I doubt that they will. I didn't think it was going to happen either. Boom, he's gone. And the Rams pushing all their chips into the table to get another star player to take a Super Bowl run this year. So we have seen a couple of big-name guys get dealt. I would put Zach Ertz in that category. Yeah, the Eagles aren't going to do something like that.
Well, no. I mean, they're not in a position to be in where the Rams are. The Rams are all in, as we say, and they should be. And the Rams right now do not give a flying you-know-what about draft picks. And they shouldn't. They shouldn't, because now all of a sudden you have Von Miller to team up with Aaron Donald. Look, that team is a significant Super Bowl contender. I think they're the best team in the NFC on paper. We'll see. It's a very difficult conference. You have Green Bay you have to deal with. You have Tampa Bay, the reigning Super Bowl champions. You have Arizona, who's obviously been playing very well until they got beat by Green Bay, which is Aaron Rodgers, so we all know. So you're going to have teams beating up on each other. But, man, the Rams are good, and they should be going for it. The Eagles aren't in that position, so no, you're not going to go after Von Miller. You're certainly not going to be buyers. Now, if there's a player, like Dave mentioned a little bit, that you have an extra year on a rookie deal, you think he can help you, you want to bring him in from that perspective, fine, I could see that happening. But when you're talking about big seize the moment trades, there's only one potential, and it's been out there for months and months and months and months, and that's Deshaun Watson. And he's only waived his trade clause from Miami. I still haven't seen anything that's come off that. And, if Miami holds their ground that says we want more certainty in this, they're not going to get it. So that he's not going to move either. That's the only big move, big splash move. Everything else would be small, under the radar. Not that it couldn't help you. And more likely, the Eagles would be sending people out. Look, Ryan Kerrigan, if you can get somebody who's desperate to give you something, do it. Same thing with Anthony Harris. And Steven Nelson, probably the most interesting, because they don't have somebody to play right away if they trade Steven Nelson, but they could get value for Steve Nelson, which makes it a little bit more complicated.
Here's the difference between Ryan Kerrigan and Derek Barnett. I have more faith in Ryan Kerrigan not taking a dumb penalty that could actually hurt the team. And you heard JG talking about him. He's producing. He's got his eyes straight. He's involved in every single play. So why would you trade a guy who's actually producing according to your defensive coordinator?
I think the most important thing, and you have more experience than me on this because of your father, the most important thing for any GM in any industry is to be honest with themselves. And it's really, really difficult. So as a make-believe GM, I'm pretty honest with myself. I know I can tell you what my fault would be. I would listen to the coaches too much because, ultimately you want to get them the players they want. I think your weakness as a GM, Jody, you close the book on certain guys.
Absolutely.
And bang, it is closed. And I just don't think that you can do that. Is he disappointing? Did he turn out to be what the Eagles had hoped? No, of course not. It's certainly disappointing, but he's still valuable for this particular team at this particular moment.
I'm missing the value week in and week out. And I know I was speaking with tongue implanted in cheek when I said Ryan Kerrigan is producing for them.
Yeah, I know.
No, he's not. Neither is Derek Barnett. He gets a tackle a week. What is that? You can't tell me you put Milt Williams in there. He can't get a tackle a week. You give Kerrigan a couple extra snaps, better chance he gets a tackle. Usually he takes a goose egg, but maybe he actually gets a tackle. You give him a couple extra snaps. Yeah, no, and I know some people put too much emphasis on this, and I want to be careful not to do that. Yeah, you do get out from underneath half of his salary. That's almost $5 million that you're saving under the salary cap going forward the next year. If you trade him, that's off your salary cap going forward for next season. I'm telling you, I'd take a conditional seventh, just to move on and not have someone who could block Milt Williams for potential playing time. And I don't think you would see any drop off on the Eagles' defensive line play over the last 9 weeks of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, I think, Derek Barnett is, with weak side defensive end. Milton Williams isn't going to play weak side defensive end. He had his best game playing mostly defensive tackle. That's his natural position, 3 technique. The Eagles also think he could be a Brandon Graham type down the road in that he could play some base end and be that versatile guy. They don't think he could be a weak side pass rusher. So I think those are not, in other words, if they did trade Derek Barnett for whatever they could get or even released him, I don't think Milton Williams would be playing for him. He doesn't play that position. I think Josh Sweat would be over there and they would just leave him at weak side defensive end and he would just play there. So I think it's different positions. I don't think they have a natural replacement in Josh Sweat, but that affects you because Josh Sweat has been filling in for Brandon Graham. So you go further down the domino line.
And he played a little this week. Taron Jackson got the same number of sacks that Derek Barnett did.
I don't think they're concerned about just sacks. I think they're concerned about not getting bulldozed off the line of scrimmage. Taron Jackson, I mean, yeah, look, he's a young player. He's a 6th-round pick. He's not supposed to be ready to play. He needs a year to add some sort of NFL strength and size and to be able to hold up in the run game. I hear what you're saying. It's similar to cornerback, what we just discussed with Dave. Look, you can throw Tay Gowan out there. You can throw Mac McCain out there. You can throw Josiah Scott. You can throw anybody out there, but it's not going to look pretty is what we're trying to say.
Here's the difference between cornerback and defensive end for me. Steven Nelson's actually making plays. He is actually contributing. He is actually getting past defenders. He is actually making tackles. Derek Barnett isn't. So, yes, if you're going with a guy that you know you're taking a chance by playing like a Jackson at defensive end, like a Tay at cornerback, I get it. Those two are comparable. The guys that you're putting in and what the expectation should be and the amount of experience they have are very comparable. The actual subtraction from your lineup, if you trade Steven Nelson as compared to trading Derek Barnett, I think is night and day.
Well, Steve Nelson's played better. I don't think Derek Barnett has played well, but I don't think he's played as poorly as you're making it out to be. As I guess where we have the disconnect. I think he's been competent as a weak side defensive end in the NFL. Again, that's a disappointment from what he was expected to be when he's drafted at number 14 overall. I do think there's a significant downgrade if you start playing Teron Jackson for Derek Barnett. That's where we kind of differ. Now, he's not going to be here next year anyway. I mean, so if you want to take it from just that standpoint and you want to get whatever you can get, I get it from that perspective. And that's why, Dave and I brought up the locker room aspect. You got to balance that part of it as well, because if people see, if the veterans are in there and saying, "Oh, you're getting rid of Barnett, you're just going to play a bunch of rookies who aren't going to ready to play," then you could start going down that negative path.
Was there any kind of a locker room reaction when they dump Zach Ertz for a cornerback who hadn't played in the league yet?
Well,
this year?
the Zach Ertz trade is different than the fact that you had a better player who you want to get on the field for significant snaps that you want here long term. I mean, Dallas Goedert is one, and I'm going to say this, that Dallas Goedert was great in Detroit, by the way.
Good.
Dallas Goedert is one of the 5 best players on the Eagles. That's how good he is. The rest of the league knows it. The Eagles know it. The Eagles, we bring up Howie Roseman, very rarely admits there will be no discounts with Dallas Goedert. That's because everybody in the league knows what Dallas Goedert is, including the Eagles. That's the big difference with Zach Ertz. And by the way, Zach Ertz wants to be a tight end 1 and probably deserves to be a tight end 1. So you had that disconnect, and that Zach was not going to be happy taking a backseat role. So I think it's way different because of just how good Dallas Goedert is.
Yeah, but if you're just talking about purely subtracting someone who gives you a chance to win on a week-in, week-out basis, I think Zach Ertz gives them more than Jack
But we were
Stoll.
talking about the locker room. Players know who can play.
Locker room.
Players know who can play. Players know Dallas Goedert can play, so they understand.
Well, I think they also knew that Zach Ertz could play.
Yeah, but you're misunderstanding my point. You're talking about they know how good Dallas Goedert is. They know Derek Barnett's significantly better than Teron Jackson at this stage. Maybe 3 years down the line, Teron turns into a star. I don't know. At this stage today, that to me is the difference between those two situations when you talk about how it comes to locker room. People are disappointed Zach left because they like Zach personally, but they know it's a business, and they know they can understand, well, Dallas is really stinking good, Zach. Not the case with Teron at this stage. I don't want to bury the kid, but come on.
Yeah, coming close, but that's okay. I know where you're coming from with him. It would be a leap of faith to put him in for significant snaps going forward. I'm ready to make that leap of faith. You're not. I got to talk to you about one of your favorite football expressions that you've used here many a time here on Bird 365, an FU player. the one that you always reference, Adrian Peterson with the Vikings. Adrian Peterson to the AFC? Isn't that against league rules or something? He's been on every team in the NFC, or at least it seems that way, but he's never been to the AFC before. What the hell's he going to do for the Titans? And I asked this of Dave Zangaro. Maybe Howie Roseman should have been Johnny on the trigger yesterday and shipped off one of their outstanding backs who looked great against the Lions this week to the Tennessee Titans, since they're not going to have Derrick Henry. Adrian Peterson got anything left in the tank?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, Adrian's 36, 36 years old at running back. Now, obviously, he's a physical freak. I mean, that guy is just, and he's always been, a couple of years ago when he was in Washington, he's 33, 34, whatever it was at the time. He had that big run against the Eagles. Remember, he's just outrunning people at that age in the NFL. Look, he's one of the, I think he's the best. I got to see him up close for years. I think he's the best pure runner in the history of this league since Jim Brown, at least, when he was in the prime of his career, but he's not in the prime of his career. He's a very powerful runner. So I guess Tennessee is trying to duplicate as much as they can with Derrick Henry, but obviously you can't do that. But from the Eagles' perspective, I heard this from a lot of people, so I'm not picking on you, Jody. Why not trade? Nobody wants Jordan. Jordan Howard admitted Jordan Howard was on the verge of retirement. Well, I'm not getting one call. And the Eagles said, all right, come back. We'll take a look at you because we like you. But he was done. Nobody wants Jordan Howard. Nobody wants Boston.
I was actually kind of surprised that they used him as much as they did.
Yeah. I thought Jordan deserved to make this team coming out of training camp. And by the way, I thought he would have made this team under normal rules.
Over Boston Scott?
I think they would have, not necessarily over Boston Scott. I think they would have kept.
He wasn't making over Miles Sanders. He wasn't making over Kenny Gainwell.
I'm saying the COVID rules affect rosters. It's different. I'm saying pre-COVID, where you didn't have an opportunity to elevate people from the practice squad, put veteran players on the practice squad. Remember, those are COVID rules. Then you would have to make difficult decisions. And I think the Eagles would have kept an extra running back and said, well, we need the between the tackles guy. And he deserved to make this team. But they didn't have to because of the COVID rules. Now you can stash people on the practice squad. You don't have to worry about it. It's much easier. You can make those easier decisions. I think just from a performance standpoint in training camp, he showed up in really good shape. He showed up much quicker than he was, obviously, when he performed very poorly in Miami. I thought he deserved to make this football team. And he showed it. And good for Jordan Howard. But I don't think there's a ton of value around the rest of the league. So people thinking, well, Adrian Peterson is 36. I mean, Tennessee made their decision. They wanted him because they think he can duplicate, as strange as that word sounds, as close to what they had, and they don't want Jordan Howard. So it's not like Howie's sleeping on the job. Nobody wants Jordan.
Just want to throw that in there. I really think that they'd be able to move one. If they could move either or two, would have been Boston Scott, who I think could have brought back that all too familiar now 7th round pick in exchange. Jordan Howard, no. I just put him in the mix because he had a good game last week, so I want to give him the props. Now you're tradable, Jordan. Way to go. You made yourself viable to be out of town.
Yeah, GMs, and I'm not going to say, because there's some bad GMs, they're not going to be swayed by one game against an 0-8 team in the middle of the season. I mean, if you are, you're probably not a GM.
Right. Not that would be a bad sign. But I do want to add just a couple more trade things. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press going to join us coming up in 5 or 6 minutes. Couple of ancillary things you can figure from this past week, trades and or injuries. On the trades, Von Miller going to the Rams, all in. They're going for the Super Bowl. Good news for the Eagles. How is that? Well, they got to play the Broncos in a couple of weeks. I'd rather play a Von Miller-less Broncos squad than a Von Miller Broncos squad. So that's a positive in that the Eagles got the Broncos coming in just a couple of weeks. And the other determination from this weekend was, how about that Carson Wentz? What the hell was he thinking? It's one of the questions we're going to ask Rob Maaddi, because on Twitter, Rob tried to defend the move that he made and said it was the right thing to do to not take the safety. Have you gone back and watched the play again yet, Rob? We'll bring it up when Rob joins us. But here's the good news. With Derrick Henry going out, despite the fact that the Titans won that game and have now opened up a pretty significant lead in that division, and the Colts could have been 4-4. Instead, they're 3-5. Oh, they're sticking with Carson Wentz. Even with that lame attempted lefty pass out of the end zone, he has only not played a handful of snaps through the first 8 games for the Indianapolis Colts. And they're not giving up on the season, which means he's going to be their quarterback again this week and the week after and the week after. The whole worry of, they might bench Carson because they want to protect that first-round pick. Not happening because Tennessee's not running away in that division. The Colts are close enough, even as crushing as that defeat was, up 14-0 before you could blink on Sunday against the Tennessee. Yeah, they're going to go for it. The Eagles will get the Colts first-round pick this year. Write it down. Jody Mack said so.
Yeah, I agree with you in the fact that Indianapolis, and I think it's better, and I've said this pretty consistently, if that pick falls to 16, 17, 18, somewhere in the bottom half of the first round, I think that's the best case scenario for the Eagles. Well, not for the Eagles, for people who want the Eagles to take 3 first-round picks, and who want to see that happen. I think it's more likely to happen if it's in that range and you get the 2 top 10 picks. Otherwise, I think you're going to see some bumbling, trading out, trading for next year, trading down, things like that. Can't take 3 top 10 picks.
Yeah, but you can trade down no matter where the pick is. If it's 17, you can trade down.
No, you can
if
trade down.
14,
I'm saying you
trade
are
down.
going.
If it's 12, you can trade down. Doesn't matter where the pick is. You can always trade down.
Which is why I said if Eagles fans want them to take 3 first-round picks, yes, they are going to trade down. If it ends up at number 9 and you have, for lack of argument, 2, 7, 9, they're going to trade down at some point. They're not going to take 2, 7, 9 is
Probably
what I'm
not.
trying to say. So that's all I meant by that. But yeah, it's working out well in the fact that Indianapolis isn't very good, but they're still in it and they have to play the starting quarterback. So it's working out perfectly from that perspective, from if you're the Eagles.
Right. Couldn't be better. They're losing. The pick is staying in the top 10, yet the chance to sit Carson Wentz really isn't increasing because Tennessee is watching their MVP candidate go by the board with an injury. Couldn't have been better for the Eagles this week. They romp. Dolphins lose. Carson Wentz loses, but is not looking anymore like he's going to get benched to save that first-round pick. It was pretty, from a draft perspective, it was pretty much a perfect weekend.
Can he pick it?
Can
he pick it?
Did you see how many times they asked him to throw it on Sunday?
I did not, to be honest.
55.
But I do know
55 passes this past week, and they got beat.
You know, because I didn't know that much about Kenny Pickett, and he's turning into that guy in the NFL. I just started hearing his name from NFL people. And I'm like, well, who the hell's Kenny Pickett? I didn't even know who the hell he was, to be honest, because I don't have time to watch that much college football, which I'm honest about during the NFL season. I don't really delve into that till after the season is over. Man, NFL people like Kenny Pickett. And that's all that matters. I don't care about draft people. I don't care about, NFL people think right now he's the guy. They might be wrong, but I've heard it from multiple. And I'm talking about GM types, multiple. And that's always like they're ahead of the curve, obviously. And then everybody else catches up. And because that's the goal of all of the draft stuff, it should be, It's not about what you think personally. It's about what you think the NFL teams are going to do. And NFL teams seem to love that kid for whatever reason.
And I like him. I can't say I love him the way you're describing, but he's a fifth-year kid stuck around. He's supposed to be good by this time. No one should be asked to throw it 55 times in one game like they did this past week against Miami for Kenny Pickett. All right, quickie timeout coming. Then our boy, Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, going to hop aboard with us next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope. John Doherty, business manager of Local 98, says it this way: the best way not to forget where you come from is to never leave.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Welcome, guys, here with you on Birds 365. Good to have our buddy checking in from Florida. He covers the entire National Football League for the Associated Press, but he never gets away from the Philly story. Our pal Rob Maaddi, who I'm going to start with this question right now, Mr. Maaddi. I hope you haven't seen it yet. Where are the Philadelphia Eagles power ranked by the NFL.com?
Oh, wow. 22nd.
Lower.
Lower as in 27?
Wow.
It's slightly higher.
25th.
26th.
26th.
And you know who's 25th? The New York Football Giants.
Ahead of the Eagles? Well, they played tough, but...
They did play tough.
Yeah,
they did play tough.
It wasn't the first time they played tough, but you got to get the W.
Yeah.
Yeah, too many people said that about the Vikings going into this week here.
That was a terrible loss.
They hang tough. They don't give up. They're fighting. They stink. They're 0-8.
Oh, the Lions you're talking about. Well,
Lions,
the Vikings stink too. Yeah, the Vikings stink too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we're at the end of the Mike Zimmer era with that loss to Cooper Rush. But
you can't lose to the Cowboys in that situation. No,
you can't. And the way he coaches like it's 1975. So he's trying to, you just can't coach that way. And you see what happens. call goes your opposite direction, all of a sudden you're in a position where you're going to lose a game against an inferior opponent. But the Eagles did not do that, Rob. They went to Detroit. They took care of their business. They got the heck out. Been asking a bunch of people. I'll ask you, what did you really learn from that game, though? So you give them credit for handling that business, but did we learn anything?
Yeah, I hate buts after victories, right? When they go, well, yeah, but it's the Detroit Lions. It's always better to dominate a terrible football team than to barely squeak by with a W, than to lose the game. So they went in there, like you said, handled their business, and they did it from start to finish in all three phases, and they dominated. What I learned was that Nick Sirianni is adaptable. And he is adaptable in that he chose a game plan against a team that he knew would work, and that was to run the football and run it effectively. And they ran 46 times, including Jalen Hurts' scrambles, and that was the most that they've ever run since the LaShawn McCoy, the Shady McCoy's snow game against Detroit, which was also 46 way back in 2013, and got all those yards on the ground. Now, is that sustainable? You heard him after the game and then again on Monday say it depends on the opponent and what they're going to allow. But, yeah, that's a formula. That's a recipe that is successful for the Eagles. So no matter what the defense is giving you, you still have to try and impose your will. And that is by allowing your offensive linemen who are built to run block to dominate those four guys, those five guys, that front seven in front of them, and wear them down. And if you don't get a 4, 5, 6 yard gain, 2, 3 runs in a row, that's okay, because you stick with that and you wear them down by the third and fourth quarter. And I'm not sure he's going to continue to do that, but I would hope that he does.
It's so funny you went there, because that's what my question was going to be. You've been talking to guys in locker rooms, specifically offensive linemen, for years. Maybe not as much as you used to because of COVID, but you did it for years, Rob. You and John both. And we get Barrett Brooks on our show from time to time. And it is amazing to me, even on the small little screen we're working with here, I can see Barrett's eyes light up when I ask him about run blocking. He gets visually excited. He's been out of the game for 10 years, but you can still see like the excitement level in him when he gets to talk about run blocking. How much of a difference does that really make? The guys that, and Sirianni had admit after his with his press conference after the game, the guys were coming off the field going, yeah, let's do this, coach. Keep with this, coach. We can do this, coach. How much does it really play into the mind of the offensive lineman when the coach is calling running play after running play? They're just that much juiced and ready to go.
My question for those offensive linemen is, why weren't they doing that the first 7 games? Come off the field and say, hey, coach, let's run the football. Let's do more of this. But it's just a mentality. And from a physical standpoint, when you run block, you're the aggressor. You're not backing up, being defensive. You're attacking. And that's what these guys, these big mountain men want to do, these behemoths. They want to be the aggressor, and they want to just knock those other guys off the line of scrimmage and off the ball. And like you said, you've heard that from offensive linemen, whether it's this year, last year, every year, any O-lineman you talk to. I don't think I've ever heard a guy say, oh, yeah, my preference is pass protection. They do it because they have to, and now they have to do it 65, 70% of the game, if not more, more often than not. But they certainly love to run block, and I think that, listen, guys, we'll never get back to a 50-50. We know that. We'll never be at a 60-40 run-pass type of league, and that's not how you win anymore in the NFL, and I get that. But I think you have to effectively run the ball more than the Eagles did the first 7 weeks. And they showed that against the Lions. And this is a team now that they're playing this week who is last in the league against the run. So it stands to reason, you would assume, you would think, against a team that doesn't do it very well, you should go out there and continue to run the football.
Well, you're probably right this week, Rob, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. The Chargers and Brandon Staley is out there doing I think, a pretty good job as a rookie head coach, but they are not good defending the run. Kind of like the Eagles play a lot of cover 2, at least early in the season. So the numbers tell you to run the football a lot against the Chargers. But you mentioned Nick Sirianni proving he's adaptable. Well, the Eagles are going to run up to a defensive coordinator who's adaptable and is watching this film, and they're going to put 8 people in the box at some point. And it's at that point where the numbers are against you and you got to drop back and throw the football. We're halfway through the season, essentially. Not quite, because we're at 17 games now, but you get the point. Can Jalen Hurts throw the football consistently to win in this league? Have we learned that? Are we on the crux of learning that? And are the Eagles doing them a disservice by scaling back and throwing the football 14 times against the Detroit Lions?
I don't think that was a disservice doing it against the Lions, because you want to come out of that game and you want to feel as positive as you can after all the struggles that they've had and get that W. But are we any closer right now to finding out that answer than we were at the beginning of the season? I don't think so. And I think that at this point, it's starting to look like Jalen Hurts isn't going to be the long-term solution for the Eagles. Now, things can change over the final 9 games. He can go on an incredible type of run and change some minds. But just the feeling, the thinking that I have about this organization is that he's not it. And I think that's why they've been consistently linked to the Deshaun Watson rumors. That's why they are consistently linked to any rumor that anytime a quarterback, whether it's now going to be Russell Wilson, maybe the Seahawks go into rebuild mode, maybe they try and blow it up, the Eagles should go in. Whoever it is, the Eagles are always interested or linked to that guy. I think Jalen Hurts has done some really good things, and he's shown that he can be a dynamic player at times, but he's not throwing the ball consistently enough. There are throws that he's not making that you have to make as an NFL number 1 quarterback. And I don't know if that's Nick Sirianni just not having the confidence, the faith in him to call those plays, or if that's Jalen looking other ways because he's not confident in himself to make those throws. I don't know what they're not. We don't see practice, right, John? I don't know what they're not seeing in practice, but I'm sure they're getting a good read and a good feel. When you hear Sirianni talk about why was Boston Scott elevated into the number 1 backup role, it's because of a good week of practice, right? So what is Jalen not doing or doing in practice that makes them feel this is all we can do with him, and these are the throws we want to ask him to make, and this is the type of offense we want him to run? And I think that kind of helps us answer the question when we don't see enough on the field.
All right, the countdown is on. Do my math. 6.5 hours, just under 6.5 hours before the NFL trade deadline hits. I need you to give me your executive location for the Philadelphia Eagles. No, right now, any East Coast GM worth his salt is already in his office by the phone, ready to do something. So we assume Howie Roseman is as well. Is Howie in his office with Jeffrey sitting with him? Is he in Jeffrey's office sitting with the owner, or are they actually going their separate ways and the hotline can ring at any time and Howie could tell Jeffrey what he's doing?
I think maybe in this COVID era, Howie's in his home office. He could be, right? Especially if the kids are off to school and it's kind of quiet in there. But certainly the phones are ringing. The texts are being sent. The calls are being made. And I don't anticipate the Eagles doing anything close to what the Rams did yesterday and trading a 2 and a 3 for Von Miller. Come on now. They're all in. They better win a Super Bowl. You're trading a 2 and a 3. Now they did get Denver to pay $9 million of whatever the 9.5, 9.7 left. I would think that the Eagles should get some calls from the Tennessee Titans. I know they went and signed Adrian Peterson, and that's great, and he hasn't played all season. But you got some running backs like Jordan Howard, who was on the practice squad all year.
Maaddi's with me on the trade Jordan Howard front, McMullen. Yeah.
Why would you not consider, if you're the Titans, a 6th round pick or conditional pick for a guy like Jordan Howard or Boston Scott. If you think Peterson's gonna, they need help at that position. They're in first place. They're number one in the AFC right now, number one seed. So they got to stockpile as much as they can. We saw what the Ravens did when they lost their running backs. They signed anybody who ever ran a football.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I don't think the
now
Titans
you
are
know
done.
though, Rob, because I don't think you made the move when in fact you would not. So you were still here when Jordan Howard, when the Eagles brought him back, and he admitted, look, nobody called me. He was very honest. He thought his NFL career might have been over, and the Eagles said, all right, we like you as a player, we'll bring you back, we'll give you an opportunity. So I'm not sure how much interest there is going to be around the league coming off a game. Look, you're a bad GM if you're going to look at a game against the Detroit Lions and say, oh, this guy's good. He'd be off one game. That's my estimation of that. But if you look at the Eagles as a whole, they've already moved Joe Flacco, already moved Zach Ertz. As we get closer to this deadline, they're not going to make that mistake, are they? They're not going to look at that Detroit game and say, maybe we're better. Maybe we can push to that 7th playoff spot, and we're gonna shift towards buying than selling.
No, they can't. They can't do that. I don't think they can be blinded by one victory, a dominant victory like that over the line. The Eagles, if anything, got to be in seller mode. You cannot be at this point thinking that with a one game out of the 7th seed in the NFC and the right to go and get your butts whipped in the first playoff game. There's no way. You don't give up. You stockpile draft picks, but you don't trade draft picks away. The only way you do that is if you're going to get a guy who's going to help you for 2-3 years down the road, somebody who's that you feel, and I don't know who's in a position like that right now, who's going to be on a trade deadline. And I mean, obviously Deshaun Watson, I don't see that guy moving right now. I don't care what all those rumors are. I just think that team is best served waiting until the offseason to get more teams involved and more teams in the mix and seeing how things shake out with them. But from the Eagles standpoint, no, you trade a Howard, a Boston Scott, whatever you can to add some draft picks, and maybe you look at, hey, maybe you trade one of your veteran secondary guys if a team comes asking. Certainly nobody's going to be interested in the Eagles linebackers. So
here's where I want to go with you, because we talked about it earlier. What would you need if you were Howie Roseman to part ways with Derek Barnett in a trade?
Not much. Me personally, not much.
I
said a conditional 7th, which means
I can't do that. Give me a 5, I'll do it. Give me a 5.
Yeah, you interested? You're going to take the rest of the year's salary? All right.
That's all I need.
What more can I do for you if you're willing to take Derek Barnett off my hands? But hey, he's coming off his first sack of the year this year, Jody. How about that? He got in on the action against
got the
Jared
same number
Goff.
of sacks that Teron Jackson got. Good job, Derek.
I'd be right there with you on moving Derek Barnett. I don't know that you'll get that call.
Yeah, I think anybody. I mean, I think it's smart when you know a player's not going to be here the next season. If you can get something for him at the trade deadline, I think it's smart. But I do think there's a little bit of balance in the locker room. If you think about the Eagles trading the 2 trades they made, for instance, Joe Flacco, we had a ready-made backup behind Joe Flacco and Gardner Minshew. Zach Ertz was about paving the path for Dallas Goedert, who's a very good player. You don't have a natural replacement for Derek Barnett. It's not as much as Derek Barnett's a good player. Derek Barnett is playing up to what he should be as a former first-round pick. It's kind of the message you might send to the locker room by saying, all right, we're going to play Teron Jackson, a rookie 6th-round pick who's not ready to play. I think that could be more negative than positive. Does it make any sense out of that, Rob?
It does, and I can understand that. But from the flip side of that is, like you said, he's not going to be here. You don't anticipate him being here next year. Now you would be giving a young guy an opportunity to show you what he can do. And I don't, trading a guy like Derek Barnett to me isn't something. It's not like you're walking in that locker room after trading Lane Johnson or Jason Kelsey or a veteran who is been there, who's a leader in the locker room. I know he was part of the Super Bowl run. I know he recovered the strip sack, right? Big play in Eagles history, and he'll always have that. But I just never got this sense, even though he's in year 5 now, that Derek Barnett is that guy who commands that kind of respect in the locker room that you would have a team revolt if the Eagles parted ways with him.
All right, Rob, let me talk about where the Eagles are going from here. 3-5, second half. Maybe they buy, maybe they sell, maybe they do nothing, and that's where I'm going to fall. That's most likely going to happen, not because of lack of effort from Harry Roseman. I just don't know that there's a deal out there for the Eagles. Nick Sirianni's job is to win as many games as he can in the second half. And despite the fact that we were all a little befuddled by his flower-growing speech last week, it seems to have worked. The players responded to. He's got Kelsey screaming about the roots.
Joe, I loved it. I was all in on the flower analogy. Keep watering, keep fertilizing, man. I thought I had no issue with that. That's fickle Philly telling you fire your coach because he made a flower analogy. Come on, guys.
It was ridiculous.
I wasn't to the fire the coach level, but I was to the eye roll level. But hey, if it works, it works. You judge the results much more than what he says. And guess what? The results this week were 44-6. So that's a win for Nick Sirianni.
By the way, it was funny, Rob. Behind the scenes with the flower power, the Eagles were kind of upset about how that was framed locally, in that, the players were fired up. There were a lot of F-bombs in that speech for the players. Thrown in, mixed in, a couple F-bombs with the flowers.
And I saw that you were posting what the players said about it, that was fired up so.
They were really fired up, and I think they used it because they were a little bit unhappy the way it was spun. And look, Nick joked about it as well, and he was going to go with the bamboo plant, which is sort of a football thing, but I thought it was overblown, and the fact that the team kind of used it, use whatever you can. If it works, use it. And if it's us versus them, use it.
Well, it's not the last time something in Philly is going to get overblown or misinterpreted. Like, here you go. I'll give you guys an example. Watching Carson Wentz make that hideous throw on Sunday, his decision to throw a left-handed pass out of the end zone that was a pick six, that actually in that position turned out because he didn't get sacked, he didn't take the sack, he didn't get the safety, they were able to get the ball back and then tie the game. So I stated that on Twitter. I said the stupid decision, I used the word terrible decision, actually in this case worked out in his favor because they got the ball back, whereas as safety, they would have had to kick off. Tennessee would have ran out the clock. They would have lost the game in regulation. And the reading comprehension, I know, is an issue on Twitter. I mean, it's a major problem. People took that tweet as me saying he purposely threw that interception because he knew that he was going to get the ball back. That's not what I was saying, but people are so blinded by their hatred for Carson Wentz that they'll attack anybody who says anything about him, even when it's calling a play terrible and stupid. So, Philly blows everything out of proportion.
And oh, by the way, and John and I just talked about that before you came on, the fact that with Derrick Henry down, despite the fact that, I don't think the Colts have a prayer of making the playoffs. I think Carson is going to play 75% of the snaps, which means the Eagles are going to get the first-round pick. Another reason why Frank Reich took Carson's back. After the game, he said, it was my call. It was a bad call. I never should have called that play. That's not on Carson. That's on me for a lousy call. So guess what? The head coach still has Carson Wentz's back.
Oh, man, it was a terrible play call, but it's still indefensible. Somehow you got to throw that away. You got to throw that ball away out of your own end zone. I did the math on the snap counts and everything else and how many they're on pace for right now based on the 99% that he's played and the snap count totals projected over the course of the season. He would have to sit out 4 full games plus parts of another one. And that's a lot. So you'd have to come. I don't know that they'll be eliminated from the 7th wild card spot by the time there's 4 playoff games left. And that's the thing. I thought they would have. I think it would be organizational malpractice if they don't protect that first round pick. But now the more I think about it, I look at their weak schedule. I look at the fact that the AFC is within reach for anybody, and they go on a run. Barring injury, I don't know how you sit him out 17, 18 quarters that he's going to have to sit out in order to miss that. But, hey, that's their problem right now.
And now on top of it, obviously Tennessee is looking really good, but they lose Derrick Henry, so they're probably going to come back to the pack a little bit as well. So
although their Colts are four games behind, right?
You're right, but you can't. If the Titans start losing a little bit, you can't start just giving up on the season. So you're right. At this point, it's probably more anything else. It's going to be injury related. If he misses those snaps, then the Colts just shutting things down. But
unless he loses to the great Mike White and
how
about Mike White? Jets on Thursday.
Well, how about Mike White wins, Cooper Rush wins, first NFL starts. Obviously, you know that happens in this league. The teams have letdowns. I think they see when a quarterback is in there who doesn't have maybe the cachet or the reputation. But it is easier to throw the football than ever in the NFL. So, you know, when we talk about Jeffrey Lurie, and I think it's a little bit talking about Philadelphia overblowing things, Rob. I think it's a little bit overblown when Jeffrey Lurie says we got to pass the football to win. I think that's a larger overriding sentiment he has, that if you want to consistently win, you have to have an high octane passing offense. And I tend to agree with him, by the way. I think he's right. So I go full circle and say about this team and those 3 potential top 10 picks, we can't live in rumor world, Nick Sirianni said, but we can live in rumor world. Rob Maaddi, Jody McDonald, John McMullen. Is there any quarterback you've heard? Because I keep hearing one name with NFL people, and that's Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. Have you heard that name?
That's a name that has been over the past couple weeks, kind of like you see at this time of the season in college football, when guys start to make their jump on that board, and has Mel Kiper put his, or Todd McShay put out his anticipate? I don't know. I can't follow those guys until it's April. I don't want. But that I hear that name often. We hear Willis, right? And I just I don't know if that's the route the Eagles would be willing to go, John. I feel like they want, if they're going to go in a new quarterback direction, they want that proven quarterback, the guy who's already had success in the NFL, whether that's Deshaun Watson, whether that somehow you can pry Russell Wilson away from the Seattle Seahawks, and the fact that right now they're struggling. He's been injured. Maybe they do at some point say, hey, let's blow things up, and now you can go in there. I wouldn't be afraid of his age at 32, 33. You see more quarterbacks now, like what Tom Brady's doing. Nobody's ever going to do what he's doing and throw more touchdowns in their 40s than in their 20s. But if they do take care of their bodies, if they do eat right, if they can avoid catastrophic injuries, you can play into your late 30s and still be elite. And that's why I wouldn't be afraid to go after a guy who's in his 30s already and feel like I can get 5 to 7 years out of him at elite level. So I would be all in on somebody like that. I'd still be afraid to go and trade all those assets for Deshaun Watson. But I think that's what they do. Now, when you talk about that Jeffrey Lurie and the passing and the running, that's, as you had alluded to, it's overblown. But I think that part of that is from his doing, because it stems back to, remember that Green Bay Packers Thursday night game, right? Where they ran the ball, But they also, people feel like people want to equate that to this week. It's not the same as this week. Carson threw 27 times in that game. That's more than 14. Last time I did the math, 27 is almost double 14.
Yeah, about you, Maaddi.
Right? And he threw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were trying to avoid throwing the ball, but they ran it consistently, and they did it well at Lambeau Field. And then there was that meeting apparently afterwards. Was that Jeff McLean who reported that?
And it was, by the way, Rob, that was an organizational meeting, which I always found. So, in other words, Jeffrey was talking to not only Doug Peterson, but also like Don Smolensky, and maybe asking him why the windmills don't work at Lincoln Financial Field. And then he turned and said, "Hey, Doug, why'd we run it so much in Green Bay?" I do think Doug took it the wrong way. And I think Jeffrey's a big information guy, as you know. Like, he wants to understand what's going on in his organization. I think the disconnect was Doug Peterson thought he was like, why are you asking me? I won the football game. I think it was more that. But
taken aback, surprised by it. But that has now created created that narrative to where something happens in Sunday's game like that, and they run the ball so much and they run it well, and they only throw 14 times, and people are posting about what's Jeffrey Lurie thinking right now. And that's
all right. Since his name surfaced, and this is just the way my mind works, and I'm probably overthinking this, and this is the reason why I'm asking you the question, Rob Maaddi. If you're Doug Peterson's agent, and Doug wants to get back into league coaching again next year, and a way to stay in top of mind is to make television appearances. The guys drop in, they do guest commentator spots, jump up on one of the pregame shows. If you're looking at the Eagles' schedule, Chargers this week, Denver, Saints playing a little bit better, no Jameis before the really easier part of the schedule kicks in. Giants twice, Washington twice, Jets before you get to the Cowboys. When are you offering your services to whichever of the two TV? The next 2 weeks are on CBS, as a matter of fact, but they're usually on Fox games. When do you put a call in to the lead producer of the pregame show on either Fox or CBS and go, "Hey, Doug will come in and talk to you guys about the Eagles. They're playing okay. They're on the verge of making the playoffs. If you want to come in and give you a little Eagle insight, he'd be more than happy." When you making that call?
Oh, man, that's a good question. You know, there's another route he can go in this day and age, right? He could sit there with his laptop and he can start dissecting and diagramming plays and posting that on social media. And then he can avoid being in that what might be an uncomfortable position of somebody asking him in the studio about the Eagles or what went down. And now he may have to be critical. So, no, I hear you, Jody, and I do think that's not Doug Peterson's strong suit to sit there and be overly analytical. He at times had struggled with that, but that's something I anticipate we'll see. You know what? Maybe I'll make the call. He's more than welcome to come on the AP Pro Football podcast. We can sit there and break down film. Let's do it. You gave me an idea.
He's got an open invite on Birds 365 anytime he wants to come on.
There you go.
Exactly right. Rob, always a pleasure, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you much. We will be getting you on again in a couple of weeks.
Are you coming to the game this weekend?
Not only am I coming to the game, I'm coming up tomorrow for like a week. So I'm concerned. What do I have to bring? How cold is it right now?
You're going to Philly. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to the Keys for a wedding. I'll wave from the plane. Maybe our planes will pass over each other.
It is finally gotten a little bit more chilly, Rob. It's it's going to be in the 50s. So
Okay. I better bring the hoodies and the
bring a hoodie. Yeah. Get your best Belichick look on. Be ready, Maaddi. Rob, good stuff. Thanks buddy.
Rob.
We got to run. Thank you very much. That's Rob Maaddi here with us on Birds 365. All right, come back. We got to wrap up this bad boy, put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope. John Doherty, business manager of Local 98, says it this way: the best way not to forget where you come from is to never leave.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Coming down the home stretch with your Mac guys here on Bird 365. Tomorrow we will be back a little over 22 hours from now, and we'll be breaking down the big moves that the Eagle made on trade deadline day. Yeah, probably not. But I'll say this again, and I take my fair shots at Howie Roseman, not as many as most others. I give him credit when he does certain things right, like the draft day maneuvering. He's very good at that. Actually picking players at the draft, man, not so good. But Howie's got his strengths and he's got his weaknesses. I'm not going to get nuts on him one way or the other unless they give up one of the 3 first-round picks to add a wide receiver because Jalen Reagor's ankle is worse than we thought, and they actually believe they're going to the playoffs this year, and he goes out and gets himself a wide receiver. I'm not going to be critical of him. We all want to see it. We all talk about it as if you could just snap your fingers and get something done. Chances are they're not going to get anything done today, Johnny Mac, are they?
Nah, well, knowing Howie, he'll do something to do something just because he likes to do something. But he's already made 2 moves, as I continually point out. So those count as well. He just got them done earlier with Joe Flacco and Zach Ertz. So I don't think it's going to be anything splashy. If they do bring a player back, it's going to be a player on a rookie deal that has maybe a year left on his contract that they think can help more than a half season. It's not going to be about this season. And yeah, I've been saying it since training camp, and it's kind of shaped out that way. They could have used a veteran body at the receiver position, and it's, they need something at that position, but they're not in a position to do what the Rams did. So forget about veteran players with big names coming in.
All right, last thing. Are you scheduled for an Eagle media session today? Is today coordinator day? If
today
so,
is coordinator day.
What time are you supposed to be hearing from the Eagle coordinators?
Noon.
Because you know what happened last week when Joe Flacco got traded? Yeah, come back in a half an hour. Yeah, come back half an hour later. Let's push it back another hour.
The coordinators.
Are you expecting a noon gathering of you and your mates?
No, yes. We'll be there at noon. the coordinators aren't involved with that kind of stuff, so it doesn't affect them. That's not going to move back.
Are you kidding me? Shane Steichen, loose lips, sink ships. They're not going to put him out in front if something big is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Shane is the guy. If you don't want information, if you want everything tightened up, Shane is the guy you should trot out there.
Get him out there. Get him out there.
The big question, though, I think what you're getting to, if the Eagles make a trade and it's somewhat significant, then we'll have a Zoom later with Howie Roseman, presumably at some point. And that would be, tentative 4:15 turns into tentative 4:45, turns into tentative 5:45. Whatever, you get the point.
Johnny Mac maybe not getting dinner tonight till about 8:30. So
nothing big is going to happen.
Have a snack along the way today, John. Is my only suggestion because you could get busy around. I'm rooting for you to be busy. I'm rooting for your dinner to be ruined today, McMullen, because I want to see the Eagles do something.
And my wife won't understand it, by the way.
Yeah, but your partner will here tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. And yes, you want to be here again tomorrow because you're truly.
You're out. You're not doing tomorrow, right?
No,
I
I'm
got
doing
COVID
tomorrow. I'm
tested.
just not doing.
You are. I got COVID, so I'll be here.
Oh no, that's right. I'm off. Today's Tuesday. I did Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'm out again on Monday because I don't get. We don't fly out till Monday morning.
All right.
So I'm gonna be out Monday. So the next 4 days, I know you can do most, but can't do all. I hope you miss me, buddy.
I am gonna miss you. But enjoy Key West.
You're such a good friggin' liar. That's why you're good at what you do, McMullen. You can lie with a straight face, just like Howie Roseman when he said, "We're not sellers when we traded Zach Ertz." No, we're not selling.
I'm thrilled for you because you said you'd never been to Key West. And
never been to Key West.
Is awesome. So you're going to have fun down there.
Looking forward to it. But then I'll be looking forward to coming back with you 1 week from today, next Tuesday. I'll be back here on Birds 365. Who we got? I don't know. It's Curran. Somebody tomorrow. You're COVID. You're out for the whole show. Or you're doing a guest spot.
Well, I can do. We gotta cobble out some things behind the scenes. I don't know. It's all seat of the pants. We can't live without Jody McDonald. Look what this such upheaval.
Something tells me you'll get the 2 hours in without much of a problem. J-Mac, have a good week. I'll text you my pick on the Eagle game so you can give it out here.
I will give it out.
On Friday. Coming back tomorrow, you just got to tune in to see who's going to be here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple,